What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Woodchuck Podcast today, guys. My name is Christian Wood, and on this week's episode, we're going to be talking about how it's deeper than just the lettering in black and white within the media. When talking about mediums and mass media, you have television, the newspaper, music, radios, and even video games, right? But the one I want to take a deeper look into on today's podcast is going to be the newspaper because this is the first one that actually kick-started them all. The reason I say this is because printed media has been around since the year 1440. Yep, that's right, 1440 is what I said, with Johannes Gutenberg and his printing press. But this is ultimately what changed the world because without it, information and media would be nothing today. Newspapers were always known as having an important part of civil society because it helps spread a lot of information to citizens really quickly. His invention was the printing press ink, which ultimately made it possible to move and type ink in a mechanized way, and this allows you to create newspapers, books, and mass-produce these things to get out on the streets. But the reason the newspaper is to be considered a medium within mass media is that no matter what it does, it is always going to reach a larger audience of people than it's intended to. And this is a good thing because that means a lot of people can be influenced and affected in many different ways. Johann's invention made it possible to mass-produce books that were sweeping the nation off his feet. Mass-produce books and also mass-produce newspapers. But these widespread of books and newspapers made printed material available to a wide general audience, which actually greatly contributed to the spread of literacy and education in Europe. And one quick thing, I want to show you guys kind of what the printing press looked like. This is a quick little, that's what it used to look like. It's a quick little visual representation. But the next part I kind of want to talk about in today's podcast is going to be the pros and cons, the ups and downs. Everything's got its ups, everything's got its downs. But the first pro I wanted to talk about was actually from an article I found on a website written by Mackenzie Ross. And she's actually been a writer since she's been about 10 years old. And she's wrote a few other articles about the pros and cons of different mediums and also about different aspects of media. But she says that as long as you reach out to publications that fit your industry, you'll know that only ideal audiences will be seeing your content. So this is directed towards a targeted audience, of course, but this is not necessarily a bad thing. This is a very good thing because at the end of the day, it's not going to be just the targeted audience that's seeing your stuff. It's also to meet other people that are just randomly coming upon it, just happen to run into it, things like that. So that's such a good thing because you're going to be able to affect more than the people that you just wanted to get out to. But another quick point is that the newspaper provide information and also general knowledge for the public. So this is a really good way for people who aren't as much in the loop to get in the loop with things and know what's going on within the world. The next pro I wanted to talk about is from an article written about the advantages of newspapers written by Kajal Sharna. But she says newspapers provide news about a country's economic situation, sports, games, entertainment, trade, and commerce. And this just helps prove my point even more, guys, right? Because like I was saying before, it's hard for people to know everything going on in this world today. I mean, I can't tell you everything that's going on in this world right this second. There's too much stuff going on in my life to know. But, that just helps show you that it's really hard for people to follow what's going on in this world. But a couple of quick things which make this a good medium for individuals and society are that it increases reading skills and vocabulary, it increases general knowledge, and it also is eco-friendly. So this makes it super easy to recycle, crumple it up, throw it in the recycling bin, it's being reused. But the next thing I want to talk about is going to be the negative side of things, right? So the first con I wanted to talk about is actually about an experiment which has shown that even a little bit of bad news has an immediate effect on people's moods. I was skimming the internet looking for good stories to tell you guys on this week's episode, but I actually ran into a journalism article from Jack B. Haskins and Mark Miller from the spring of 1984, and this actually talks about the effects of bad news and good news in the newspaper around the world. Here it says news of crime and suicides in newspapers is followed by an increase in crime, suicides, and accidents, which is not a good thing, right, guys? Because this shows the immediate impact it has on people emotionally and physically, whether it's in a good way or a bad way. The last negative effect I wanted to talk about has to deal with the negative impression that some newspapers can create. In an article I found, which was talking about the negative but also positive effects of newspapers, I found that newspapers actually have become a very common source in defaming a person, company, and even project. The fact that some readers believe everything that they are reading creates a false reality for whatever person or company or even product that they are talking about. So this is not a good thing, because people can't be believing everything they say. They need to be believing a credible source, whether it's a credible newspaper or a credible person saying it. But the next part in this podcast is going to dive into how this medium makes money. Personally, my favorite, because I love talking about money. Money's my thing I love in life. But the two ways newspapers are going to be making money is going to be, one, through sales, and two, through advertisements. While I was doing research, I found an article written by Beverly Bird, which talks about how the newspaper industry is profitable. But while reading this, she says, in addition to advertising revenue, many newspapers rely on circulation revenue to survive. And circulation revenue is the money generated through paid print subscriptions and sold copies of the paper. This is the first way a lot of newspapers are going to be making money, because without advertisements, this is all they'd be running off if it was strictly all their information. But even though in our age today, we're kind of transitioning to a digital side of things, it's not a bad thing either, because they could still make money by selling digital copies online. But the second way newspapers are going to be making money, guys, is going to be through advertisements, obviously. This is going to be where they're going to be making their profitable side of things. So newspapers actually have advertisements that pay a fixed rate depending on the size of the ad they're giving. It also depends on how many words, how big it is, and what colors they might be using. Here's a little bit of an example to show you. Got different sizes of ads on here, but this just kind of helps show my point. The top left one has a bigger site one. Bottom right one has a little bit smaller ones, but it ranges in prices depending on what and how big and what colors this ad uses. But in an article I read from the MBA knowledge base, I was reading about advertising in newspapers as a medium, and I was going through it, and it said newspapers are the major form of print media and the largest of all advertising media. Newspapers are quite important to national advertisers and are especially important to advertising mediums to local advisors. And the reason I think that the newspaper is so strong, because it just shows you how important and how powerful the newspaper can really be on getting it out to people. The next thing I want to talk about in our today's podcast is going to be a media theory that I think this medium links to. The theory that I'm going to be talking about today is going to be the direct effects theory. And if you don't know what the direct effects theory, I'll tell you a quick little definition. Now, from our textbook in class, Understanding Media and Culture and Introduction to Mass Communication, it says that the direct effects theory assumes that audiences passively accept media messages and react predictably to those messages. The way this relates to the newspaper is that people will see information and just take it all in once they've finished reading it, and just act exactly the way the people want them to. I mean, it's really predictable, seeing what they want to do, and it just goes to show me how it connects to this theory a little bit more. Because they'll read everything they want, and they'll either act in the positive way that these people are trying to make them act, or in the negative way. But the last part of today's podcast is going to be my conclusion. If I wanted to wrap up this podcast and leave you guys with 3 things, this would be them right here. The first one is that the future might not be as bright for the newspaper. There'll always be people out there that prefer to read on hard copies, so hope is not completely lost. But I think we are kind of transitioning to a digital age, so we're going to be moving away from these papers. But the second thing is going to be that newspapers is the one who kickstarted all the mediums off in mass media. With Johannes Gutenberg and his invention, mass media would be nothing today. And the last thing is going to be that how powerful the newspaper has been in the world isn't something that should be overlooked. Due to the fact of how it helped spread literacy across Europe, and also how it's been a staple point in many places around the world and influencing and helping their communities, it really is a big thing and a big deal, and it isn't something that should be looked at. But with that being said, guys, that's going to be it for today's episode. I hope you guys all enjoyed, and I hope you guys all have a good rest of the weekend. Stay psyched, and until next time, guys, you